Hello.
Welcome to episode 98 of First Frames First. I am your more handsome and with more hair on the top of my head host, Adrian Constant.
And I'm Jay. Welcome. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've podcasted. Many moons. And what I'm sure everyone's really excited for is to hear all about Shifted and our updates. But that's not what this episode's all about. What are we doing in today's episode, Adrian?
Well, we're actually going to chat to 5 authors who have all co-authored a book together called Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the Young Professionals Edition. And we're going to have everyone on the show with us tonight. And we are going to talk about the book and the process. It's currently on Indiegogo. And let me tell you something. I mean, they've almost reached their goal. So, if
Hopefully,
we can help them push, get over the edge there, that'd be really fantastic.
What are the chances that we get so many live viewers that we push them over their goal in the next hour?
Come on. That would be amazing.
There's no way. There is a way. I'm sorry, guys. But we will welcome the SIWIKE team in a few moments. Welcome back to First Frames First.
Hey guys, I'm Adrian.
And I'm Jay. We run Fable Forest Films.
Right now, we're totally independent.
Well, what's the dream?
Making crazy awesome film and television for the biggest studios.
This podcast is our journey.
And we're live. We're with everyone. Oh, this is unacceptable. Hold on a minute.
You have to move the screen.
Let's put Adrian on the bottom.
Thanks, Jason. Love it.
Love it. There we go. I'll stay on the top. That's fine. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is definitely the most people we've ever... Who has crying babies? There's crying... Adrian, is that your crying babies?
No.
Nope. Okay, good. Not mine either. Welcome, everyone. Adrian, take it away.
Well, first of all, we'd like to welcome all of you. And I would like to say that, writing a book, this is not a small thing. This is a serious endeavor that a lot of people try and a lot of people don't get right. And you guys have done that. So first off, I'd just love to congratulate you guys on all having done this and being part of the process. This is amazing. And I'd like to turn it over to Lukey to introduce your team. Talk about these crazy characters that you brought together for the book.
Well, thanks so much, Adrian and Jay, for hosting us. And so these crazy cast of characters are here, and they helped me put together this book. So, quick introduction: Lukey Danu Karyanto. Lukey is fine. Don't worry about the last name. I'm Indonesian. Most people are curious about where that last name came from, and it's a very made up name. Because my dad actually, he literally made it up due to some civil unrest in the country. So I'm actually, as you can probably tell if you're watching on the video, I'm ancestrally Chinese, and we're actually part of the Chan or Tan lineage, and that's where how my dad was born. And if you're ever in Indonesia and need a resourceful worker, you can ask for a Danu Karyanto, and maybe they'll get you one, right? So that's kind of where it is.
Wow.
So my background is I did computer science. I was in business and management consulting. And then I tried to figure out, what did I actually want to do when I grew up? Because I was on a pretty good career path, but I wasn't fulfilled, right? It was one of those things where I went off and said, is this what I want to keep doing with my life? And part of it was figuring out, okay, what are some of the lessons learned? What did I get? And that's where SIWIKE came up. So the stuff I wish I knew earlier. It was previously what you didn't know you needed to know, but I couldn't have a good acronym with YDINK or something. So it became Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, which became SIWIKE. So put that together, and then the first book came out, and there's a lot of great feedback. It was the students edition, so a lot of folks who were going into school and trying to figure out how to become successful. A lot of great feedback there. And then a lot of folks were like, well, what's next? When's the next edition? And I was like, well, you know what, even though I wrote a book, I'm not really that big of a writer. So I guess the laziness in me said that, you know what if I could only write 1/5 of a book by getting 4 co-authors to help me? So that's how I kind of co-opted these folks to kind of sign up with me in order to put some of their skills and knowledge to the forefront and share their experiences. So the cast of characters, I'd like to say that I assembled the Avengers, so to speak, and each of them kind of bring a unique mix of kind of what happens after you graduate, right? So as a young professional, you went through school and a lot of your life is directed. But then what? Like, what do you do when you get out there? Like, you're supposed to fend for yourself in the wild. So my cast of characters in no particular order is Tiffany Human, who basically takes us through kind of career journeys, right? So she talks about kind of jobs and landing something, and then even promotions and kind of moving up the corporate ladder, and even we'll talk. She'll get into things like salary negotiations, things like that. And then we have Dave Catallo, who shares a little bit of his kind of health, wellness insight. So I knew him when he was a little chunkier and chubbier, and hopefully he doesn't mind me saying that. And I watched his transformation, where now he runs half marathons, triathlons, and things like that. Paulson, he shares his financial knowledge. So he's an advisor there, and we align in terms of like helping others become more financially literate. And Shalini, who kind of connected us with yourselves, and she shares a lot of her insights from a mental wellness perspective. So given her master's in psychology, then she shares a lot of that wisdom. And I think that's a lot of the fundamental stuff that growing up you really have to take control of. And me, I kind of fill in the blanks of everything from like adulting, like how do you actually grow up, and even some of the more detailed kind of like life skills that sometimes people take for granted that they actually learn somehow. And it's not that they actually teach any of that stuff in school. It's just stuff that sometimes people stumble on and figure out. So hopefully that wasn't a long-winded introduction. That kind of gives some information about kind of the process and how I assembled these folks, and I guess a little bit on how we ended up here. So happy to chat a little bit more about anything that comes up.
Well, let's hear from some of the others, and Adrian, jump in and ask questions. But why don't we start with Tiffany, if that's okay? I see you're on mute. Good job, everyone, for muting whilst others are talking. That's whose pro tip is that? Muting during team meetings. Anyways, let's get Tiffany. Why don't you give us a succinct, a little piece of what your section is all about, and maybe like a couple of some of your best tips.
Oh, yes, sure. And happy to. And so happy to be here with you tonight. And honestly, based off of what Lukey shared, it was also a huge inspiration for me in becoming a career strategy coach, and a lot of the insights that I bring into my section of the book. Because before this, I was also in a corporate path for about 13 years. And similar to Lukey's insights, there's a lot that you're not prepared for. School is great in teaching you a lot of the hard skills or technical skills, depending what kind of function you're looking to get into, but there's a lot of gaps. And in hindsight, I realized that, hey, if you're not addressing these types of gaps effectively, it could actually really stand in the way of your progression. And so that's a real theme that I carry through my section in the book, from very outset as a young professional starting in their career to navigating their way through it. And this starts from the very initial stages of job searching, interviewing, networking, a lot of those skills that you hear about. But when it comes, push come to shove, you really need to figure out, okay, well, what actually do I need to do? And if there's one thing I'm all about, both in this book and through my coaching, it's taking action. And so it's been a lot of fun to bring a lot of tangible, concrete tips right into this book, right into the journey that we've all created together, so that as a young professional, we can really help fill in those gaps for you. And then I would say it also leads in really nicely to, once you're in your job, okay, well, then what, right? it's one thing to get the job. Great, amazing, congratulations. But then it's more, okay, well, where do you go from there? And so that's where we talk a lot more around things like personal branding, communication, relationship building, career path, salary negotiation, which is a big one, right? I think even from my experience, I've heard so much that this really should be a class taught in university on how to negotiate. It really is a life skill too, but especially from a salary standpoint. And I'd say also specifically for professional women, where we don't always have that confidence to really negotiate. It was really fun putting that part into the book, and really share some concrete tips there as well of exactly the type of flow and structure that you can have in setting yourself up for the most success. And then that transitioned very nicely into just the progression path and finding your career purpose and what does that look like, because everyone's definition of career success is different. So maybe, Jay, back to your point around some of those key tips, I'll maybe share 3. The first is your control is yours to, your career, I should say, is yours to take control of. That is a big message, right? Nothing is just going to be handed your way. And even if it is, it's still better that you are the one directing that path. And this book is going to help really fill in a lot of those insights to help you navigate that. Another just a big learning is don't compare your path to someone else's, right? You are unique. You have your own distinct place on this earth, and seeing what's happening around you is sometimes good for creating curiosity and insight and intrigue, but not to get into your mindset and make you question yourself and your abilities, because that will once again directly stand in the way of achieving what you're capable of. And I'd say the third thing is, just knowing that your career is meant to evolve. Look at Lukey, look at myself as 2 prime examples as co-authors on the book where, Lukey could answer this after, but I know for me, if you asked me a few years ago if I would have ventured into career strategy coaching, I wouldn't have said yes. It was very much something that kind of happened. In hindsight, I understand exactly how I got here, but a few years ago, it just wasn't necessarily something as top of mind in this way. And I think that's a good lesson that we bring into the book too, that, you can have a career that is in a company. You could have a career that's in a different field. Entrepreneurship is definitely a career. So just bringing those different possibilities as well.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. Now, I will say one of the most important things from our perspective is definitely, keeping your eyes on your own work. Comparing yourself to others is a very dangerous game that just leads into a bad space, especially since you don't know where other people have come from, where they're going to. And when you just look and on a surface level, you kind of just, well, that's where I want to be. And you just compare yourself to them. It's a bad game. That's no good for anyone. I'd like to turn over a question to Paulson. I'd like to ask you, what was the last thing? Now, you did the financial part of the book.
Yeah.
What's the last stock you invested in? And also, would you give us, would you talk about your part of the book and some of the stuff you wrote about, some of the tips and tricks?
For sure, yeah. Last stock I invested in, probably pretty boring, probably an index, I'd say, of some sort.
Yeah. Copy that.
But I'd say, for my part, first off, if you hear a crying baby, that's me, guilty. And we have a 1.5-year-old. Apparently he's trying to sleep with that stuff he knows. So that's I got the message from the wife, so that's why.
Listen. Do you want the stuff you wish you knew earlier about a 1.5-year-old? I could tell you something.
Hey, talk to Lukey. Maybe the next book, right?
Yeah.
We'll be doing the parents edition soon enough.
That's right.
So excited to be here. And first off, thank you for having all of us on the show tonight. I'd say for me, obviously, tackling finances, it always feels like it's really daunting. I'll have to, if I must confess, I'd say coming into this section, because doing this as a career, right? I thought that it would be a breeze. I thought that writing about finance, I'll just whip out everything I know, everything I've read from my 10 years of experience in this field, then it would be so easy, right? But when push came to shove and you have to start, putting words on paper or on the computer screen nowadays, it was so hard, right? Just to be able to give advice that is both educating, but without coming with too much bias, and to present information in a way that is universal. Because as you mentioned, Adrian and Tiffany, you referenced as well, everyone is coming from a different place, and everyone is walking on a different path. They want to go to a different place, right? And I think for me, that's one thing that I've come to really appreciate when you think about, when you first take a step back and say, hey, I want to plan my finances. I want to tackle this. I want to get things under control, right? I mean, like, if you think historically and logically, right, it's not rocket science, right? You make more or you spend less. Like, that's finances 101, right? And but their life doesn't usually work that way, right? There's so many competing objectives. There's so many twists and turns that can happen. And I think that for me, I've come to really appreciate that until you get to the point where you're clear on what your objectives are, what your goals are, what your values are, right? What are those milestones that are upcoming? Those are really the building blocks. I always tell clients that these are the building blocks of a successful plan, right? And you want to really understand yourself, get to know yourself really well to be able to plan out the money part, because money means different things to different people, right? Ultimately. But when you take a step deeper and you start wrestling with some of the concepts that we talked about in the book, we talk about things like should you rent versus buying? That's a hot topic, I think, especially for young people in the city, but maybe not even young people, right? I think there are a lot of people that have, turned away from that traditional, you have to own a home mindset to say, hey, we're going to rent for life, and that's the choice that we make, and it's worked out great for them, right? And you kind of wrestle through some of those concepts of what that means. We talk about understanding, navigating the financial system in Canada, because there's so many terms, there's so many different types of accounts, different types of ways you can invest in, right? Like, you start off with RSPs, TFSAs, joint account, cash accounts, people that have businesses, corporate accounts, trusts, like it just keeps going bigger and bigger, right? So we try to navigate some of those spaces to say, hey, like, how do you navigate and plan your life accordingly so that you can use different accounts strategically to your advantage, depending on what some of your goals could be, right? And a lot of it is drawn from both a professional career in this space, but at the same time, it's also a lot of it is based on the mistakes that my wife and I made along the way, right? We're maybe a couple years into this whole crazy thing of trying to manage finances. Even for us, like, we've gone through a lot of different iterations with our family in terms of how we plan our finances and what we strive to achieve or strive and mark goals as. And it's taking some of those learnings and breaking it down, condensing it, and trying to put the best information that we can into the book, so that hopefully it helps people, whether they are early in their careers or even a little bit later on, get a strong foothold and hopefully be able to get a step ahead. So yeah.
All right. Well, later in the show, Paulson, you just that way we keep everyone. Give us the one secret to being rich. Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Right at the end.
That's right.
And just before we move on,
yeah,
do you talk at all about cryptocurrency? Does that feature?
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Mm-hmm. I describe what it is. I don't dive into it. I'll preface by saying, like, a lot of people have different opinions of crypto. It's hard professionally to give a solid answer just because it's constantly changing, right? I myself, just for the sake of full transparency, I have a small mining rig at home with a couple of GPUs, so I do mine cryptocurrency personally, and I love it. But I would say that from a professional standpoint, obviously it's an asset class that has a lot of risk and potential reward. There are probably a lot of where it will go will be impacted by how legislation and governments decide to crack down or control how it's used. So we'll see. It's exciting times.
I like to put all my money in shovels. because it never stops snowing. So
there you go. Well, you don't want global warming then.
it's good. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's the only reason that I go to environmental rallies.
It's because you have a shed
It's
full of
because
shovels.
That's right. I have a stock, lots of shovel stock options.
You're a real jerk. You know that,
Yeah,
Jay?
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry,
All right.
everyone.
Okay,
on.
now listen. I'm very curious to know about what Charlene had to write. Because listen, a master's in psychology. Charlene has done so many things. She's been, I think, you must have a degree in just about everything you can get a degree in. And talk a little bit about your section of the book.
Yeah, so my section is mental health and mental wellness. And so funny thing is when we met, so back in 2012, when I was living in Waterloo, I was working at BlackBerry. Back then I was a technical writer. I just graduated, so I do have a math degree and a business degree as my undergrad. And then why I'm laughing is because I remember I just recalled is the first time I was on your guys' podcast on First Frames First was we were talking about Maslow's hierarchy and the hierarchy of needs and how does it all fit in. And so this whole piece of the book, it essentially it's like my own personal journey. So if you talked to me back then, I would have thought it would be much more structured, much more methodical, much more kind of you go to school and then you graduate and then you get a job and then you get a bigger car and you get a bigger house and you keep going down this path. And I remember one thing is when we chatted last time is Adrian introduced me to this idea of masterclass. The masterclass classes, and I took it because I have a math degree. What do I know about writing? How do I write stuff? Never had to write a paper in my undergrad. Started doing the psychology thing, mostly just to figure out how does my own brain work? Like, why do I make the choices I do? Why do I like the things that I do? And then once you get into how your own brain works, you start figuring out, oh, this is how other people's brains works. And this is how I can help them do the things that they want to do. So in my professional career, I had the opportunity to run a small firm in Ottawa. And then today what I do is consulting. So I like to describe it in the sense that I help other people fulfill their three things: the autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And so with this masterclass piece, essentially the whole idea with writing is you have to write a little bit in the uncomfortable place. So if you feel a little bit uncomfortable, you feel a little bit nervous about how much you're sharing in the story because it is kind of essential to you. That's how I felt about what I was writing in this piece. And so the pieces around Maslow's hierarchy is a lot of people know about this hierarchy of needs, but right before he passed away, he had a sixth level, which is this idea of self-actualization. So the top level is mostly us achieving our success, our career, our love life, our relationships, our safety needs, all of these things. When you get to self-actualization and self-transcendence, the sixth level, the point is, or the purpose of your life is to start helping other people climb this ladder. And so this is my when I met Lukey and he talked about this book, even though I have no idea how to write a book, this is the first time I felt really nervous about it, but it just, you have that feeling inside of you that says this is the right thing to do. And this is what I shared in the book. So how we talk about every person's story is unique, and this is my unique journey, my unique story to the world of meditation and mindfulness, self-care, figuring out my purpose. And my goal is, by sharing my story, I can help you kind of find your story and find the words, whether that's a book, whether that's like just being able to tell it to yourself, because stories are so much of what makes us human. And then this is where this is why Adrian and I've been talking for so long, is because we connect on this fundamental piece that stories are essential to being human, and that's what I think First Frames is all about. That's what I think this book is all about. These are all of our unique stories in these unique spaces. Not to say this is the way to do it, more to say, here's what we tried. These are some mistakes we made, and these are some successes we had, and hopefully you don't have to make the same mistakes that we do. So it's this idea of humans are all about sort of building upon the previous generation. So this is our contribution back to that piece.
100%. I will say that the magnificence of humanity, in my opinion, is the fact that we are building one generation onto another generation. The fact that we bring the learning with us all the way. Like, we're as smart as those humans were probably, so many generations ago. But really, it's because we are building, because we bring it all with us as we go. And we're standing on the shoulders of the people that come before us. So 100% lessons being pushed forward. I mean, it's just so important to the survival of this little species. So thank you, Shalini. Fantastic. That's amazing. Now, listen, we're going to talk to David about his triathlons. And before we talk to David, we would like, Jay, can you just put David on full screen there so that we can have a good look at it, at what he looks like?
I sure can. Here we go.
Look, okay, David, give us a smiley and a thumbs up. Okay, now, Jay, show us the picture David sent us.
All right, here we go. This.
Oh boy,
David. David, this was a transformation.
Talk about the story of uncomfortable sharing.
Boom.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So, David, your role in the book is talking about health and wellness. Can you talk a little bit about your journey and some of the tidbits, some of the things you wrote about in the book? And maybe
Adrian and I are very excited to hear your tips about triathloning. I tried. He succeeded. Let's hear some great stories.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. So for myself, I guess a little bit of background. I did go to school at the University of Waterloo for kinesiology. Took a management studies minor. So I do have some knowledge based on that. Although when I graduated and I started to work, I probably let a lot of what I knew slide to the side a bit. And I joke that how engaged couples tend to put a lot of effort into trying to look great for their wedding photos. That's the exact opposite what me and my wife did. So, and that's actually like pretty much at that point there. Those pictures were pretty much within my first couple of years of getting into the workforce. And I think although I knew what I should be doing or desired to do, I seemed to kind of get myself in a little bit of a rut that I was busy. There was other priorities and tired at the end of the day. So, I kind of almost went on default, or you call it the unconscious programming that, I wasn't really doing the things that I knew I should be doing or really wanted to do once I started thinking about it. So, I think as far as transition goes, I started off, trying to do some of those, programs or little, you hear the P90X, I'm not sure if you heard of that one, but it was a training program that, okay, all in. I gave it a go, did my 90 days, and I saw results, and it was pretty good. But once it was done, then, okay, started to slip back into old habits, and there we go. So now, not only did I go back to where I was a little bit worse off. So I was like, okay, back to square one. What do I do now? And so there was a lot of trying to figure out what's the best approach. And honestly, that's where I landed on the lifestyle approach. And basically, forget about diets, forget about trying to figure out what's the latest and greatest thing that we can do, and just tied into creating a plan, trying to rally some support who knew what I didn't know, and try to capture some of that information and see what I can use. And then as I go, just try to build it. not so much a team, but a community that we can support each other and celebrate the small successes. So yeah, I think I started off by, I'm fortunate my workplace offers a fitness facility that we can utilize. And I started off by setting a goal that I'd just show up to the gym every day of the week, it like for the 5 days of the workday, for the work week. And, it didn't matter if I showed up for 10 minutes or if I was there for an hour. The goal was just to start showing up. And I started, building a habit, building a routine. And, it kind of got me to the point where, in my mind, I set that goal, and I'm big about setting targets, or talk about the laughable goal, laughable target. It's almost embarrassing even to voice and say. So I set myself a laughable goal to run a marathon, and I thought, no way, that's never going to happen. But you know what? I'm going to throw that target out there. But in my mind, I was like, if I can actually do a 10K race, then I'll consider myself fit. And again, not saying that that's a marker to be fit by any means, but in my mind, that's what I set. So anyways, as I was working out, seeing some changing in my condition, I'm like, you know what, I think I can do a 5K race. So I ended up signing up for a 5K race, and it went well. I decided to do a couple more. It led to the idea of, well, why don't I try 10K? And I did a 10K race. And then, it took a couple friends, pulling on my shoulder and said, hey, why don't you do a half marathon with me? And I remember doing my first half marathon. It was out in Blue Mountain. And worst day to be running. I think we had, up there, probably snow. But it was, I just remember the wind. And it felt like I was running, but I wasn't moving. And so actually, the buddy I did it with, he went in front of me and acted as a shield as we continued on through the race. So it was, it was awesome after it was done. But so I did the half, and then came the time for that, again, that marathon. I'm like, do I try it? And again, same friend kind of pulling my shoulders, like, hey, Dave, I found this race in Disney. And I'm like, I'm not sure, I didn't mention, I don't know, I have 4 kids right now. So going to Disney is a big thing. At the time we had 3, the 4th was in my wife's belly, but we ended up, he told me about the Dopey Challenge. So I'll describe the Dopey Challenge. Basically, it's a 4-day race. You do a 5K on the Thursday, you do a 10K on the Friday, a half marathon on the Saturday, and then the full marathon on the Sunday. So here I am, thinking completing a marathon is monumental as it is. And I'm signing up for this crazy, I think the name Dopey really, really earns that title. But anyways, I ended up putting a year's worth of training, and was able to get to the point where the whole training was being able to run on fatigued legs. So, I'm doing a long run on a Saturday, and then another long run on a Sunday. And at first, I tell you, Epsom salt baths were fantastic. I definitely needed those. But, afterwards, you didn't feel it. And I'm like, wow. So I'd say it was when I completed that final race, once I hit the marathon, it was, I guess, an aha moment that it was like, holy smokes, I just did something that I once thought was impossible. And honestly, it opened up my eyes to what else I can accomplish in life. And I've been kind of taking that approach from there out on.
Fantastic. I'd just like to mention a couple of things that jumped out at me that I feel are so important. And one of them that you mentioned there, that you wanted to get yourself to the gym, even if you were just there for 10 minutes, but you were just trying to build the habit. I think it's so important when you're trying to build a habit. I agree with you 100%. Don't make these huge goals. Don't be like, I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to do this crazy, I'm going to do 10Ks. I'm going to do these heavy barbells. I'm going to do that. Just go to the gym and stand and just go and have a shower, but just get yourself to the gym every day for like a week. Absolutely. That's fantastic. And another thing that jumped out at me, which was so cool, is that you kind of had a community, which, I think it's so important to have, like you had a buddy who was like, come on, let's go do this thing. And that's just such an important thing. So I would also just like to, Lukey, could I ask you, what what does success look like with this book? If this book were to hit the level that you dreamed it would hit, what is that?
I mean, I have no like long or huge aspirations for it. For me, it's getting the message out. Actually, the way that I approach this book is I actually found a whole bunch of people that were interested in, I guess, achieving something, right? So similar to what Dave said, is like, well, he never thought he could run this marathon. And a lot of the folks here is like, well, I never thought I'd write a book, that sort of thing. So it's a matter of, hey, I'm writing a book, let's do it together. So we kind of built our own little community to write a book, and ended up doing that. So for me, it's providing a voice for the folks here. So each and every one of them, I found inspiration from the things that that they did and the experiences they shared. Like some of the folks, like I've known for a long time, and some of them I met fairly recently, but had a connection, and it just like this seems like the right thing to do. So for me, it's to be able to one, provide a platform for all these folks so that they can be immensely successful. And maybe I'll take a little bit of credit for that. The other side is if the book ends up in someone's hands, they're a young professional out there, they have graduated and they're trying to figure things out, and this book inspires them to do something, then that's one of the major things. So one of my thanks. One of my goals out there is to actually be one of the quote unquote new billionaires, which is to positively impact 1 billion people. Right. So for me, it's doing things like the book, some of the other content that I create is my hope to get there. Because I did the calculation, and if I spent 1 second, which with each of those 1 billion people, it would take me 32 years. So I don't even have that kind of time. So something like a book would help scale a little bit. And then if it could be extended out to the other folks here, where apparently each person when they grow up will probably impact about 90,000 others in a way, and hopefully again that's on a positive side. So if I extend kind of these four times 90,000, that's getting me closer to the billion. Right? That's kind of my selfish reason for doing that. But yeah, for me, it's not about like reaching any top whatever list, which I don't mind if it ever hits those. I really have no aspirations on that. But at the same time, it's putting that message out there. And the thing is, my hope is to create a lot more of these, right? So we joked about the Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier Parents Edition, but that's already up here. I'm already trying to figure out like what it is. But my kids are like 6 and 8, so yeah, maybe Dave will be invited more because he's got 4 under tow. But like the Entrepreneurs Edition, the this is the Young Professional Edition. What about the Seasoned Professional Edition, or the Retiree, or the Career Switchers, or the whatever, right? So could we turn this into
maybe the Filmmakers Edition? I'm just saying.
100%. And even individually, the Jay edition, the Adrian edition. Like, why shouldn't you share your own the Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier? Because that's my hope, is that everybody they've learned a lot, right, through the course of their life, and the younger version of you, right, if they had that one book, that one tidbit, that one swipe that could change the course of their life, and they get it, well, that's worthwhile. Right. So that is kind of my intent. And the joke about me kind of being one of the new billionaires is that, yeah, I definitely want to make that positive impact. But the joke afterwards is to ask each one for $1 afterwards. And so hopefully that they'll be more than obliged to provide that if we've helped out. So yeah, go and fund the Indiegogo campaign. I think we're close to our target.
All right. Well, if we want people to buy, let's just say, give us a couple of your tidbits from the book. I know you said you filled in the gap. Give us a couple of those gaps.
Oh man. So for me, a lot of it is like I said, assembling the Avengers. I took it a little bit more on the kind of lower level side, where a lot of folks, they're in different stages of life, right? So we actually talked a little bit on the kind of adulting side, where like some people, when they grow up, they've been sheltered at home, right? So they don't know how to cook They don't know how to get around the city, that sort of thing. They've never used public transit, that sort of thing. So even doing something like getting lost and going somewhere, right? So there are some folks that I encounter that like they've only ever Ubered everywhere or got rides driven. So it's one of those things that, well, some people's like, no, that's not possible. It's like, well, yeah, I talk to a bunch of them on a regular basis. So even something as simple as that, like for those of you who don't know how to cook, right? You just go out there and experiment, and you might be the greatest chef ever, but you have been holding yourself back because you thought you can't, right? A lot of it is to explore and try these sort of things where you've never thought that you could do in a million years, but you kind of realize, hey, maybe there's something to do, something to this, and it could be something that I could latch on and get better. Or it could be just a failed experiment and you get to laugh about it and tell a story about it later on. But I think a lot of that exploration is out there. And hopefully what the book shares on its whole self is that there's no one right way to do things, right? So we share a whole bunch of perspectives, and it's purposeful, where we have a whole bunch of different authors from different backgrounds, different areas. And we have kids walking around in the background of somebody's video feed, and you can always expect the unexpected, that sort of thing, right? So I would encourage folks to go and explore, to try to listen to these perspectives, find the SIWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier, about anybody that you respect, anybody that you're curious about, anybody that you're interested in. And then I think one of those things I encourage folks to do is to share yours, right? So no matter where you are in life, I believe that you have a ton to teach someone, right? Now all you have to do is figure out who that person is to teach, right? And it doesn't have to be through writing a book. It doesn't have to be through creating a feature film. It doesn't have to be through writing a blog post or whatever. Sometimes it's just a quick conversation, or sometimes just a quick action to help someone there, right? So my parts of the book are really to kind of showcase a little bit about that kind of growing up, right? And then each of us also have a little bit of I have Lukey's lessons at the end of some of the sections, where I kind of throw in my 2 cents along each of them. So even though they focus on other topics, I get my 2 cents in there once in a while as well.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question, and then Adrian, but then we'll do some rapid fire questions here for everybody. So the part of our show is, we're indie filmmakers. You guys are, let's say, independent authors. But so one of the questions that I would love to hear an answer for the audience is, can you talk a little bit about the business of writing and selling a book? And we'll try to, I know it's probably huge, like a lot, but maybe let's keep it brief. But what is involved with, are you guys self-publishing? I know you've got the Indiegogo, but then what happens from there? What is it, just rough, what does it cost to print a book? And, give us some of the numbers and the business behind being authors, just so that people can get a sense.
Yeah, so the traditional approach is to go with one of the publishing houses. They pay for everything. You get an advance, and you basically make, I think it's something like a couple of bucks per book, like $2, $3, $4 a book. So for those of you who are looking to make money off of writing a book, that's not really what happens, right? I heard the statistic that in Canada, even a best-selling book is one that sells over 5,000 copies in a 12-month period, right? So do 5,000 times $2 or $3. That's not really a lot of money, right? And that's with a best-selling book in Canada, right?
Right.
So that's in the traditional market, you would do that. The other side is the self-publishing route, so I think if you do something like a Kindle digital publishing, I think they take about 30% of or 35% of the whatever you list it for. So if it's like a $10 book, then they take whatever $3.50, and you make the rest, right? And what we did was we did something in the middle. There's something called a hybrid publisher that like the self-publishing is all you, right? Like you design the cover, you typeset everything, you have to get like the ISBN numbers and blah, 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 all those different things. And that takes a lot of effort. And there are these hybrid publishers popping up that help you with whatever it is that you need, right? So if you need more of something or less of something, then they'll help you with that. And we went with Iguana Books. So they're a small publisher out out of Toronto. And they've they were the ones that published my first book, which is kind of the reason why I went with them for this one. And for us, again, we self-publish. We used a hybrid publisher, and the crowdfunding campaign, the Indiegogo campaign, is really just to spread the word, right? So the book will be available on like Amazon and Indigo and Barnes and Noble later on. So it'll be available for a kind of retail purchase online. But the Indiegogo campaign is basically to cover costs. So if you're asking pretty much how much it costs to publish a book, it's roughly on the order of like the campaign. So it's about $10K is probably what you're gonna spend if you're to do a hybrid publisher. Now we actually have a good relationship, and ours is a little bit more cost effective, that sort of thing. There are hybrid publishers that'll go 20, 40K, right? Even more than that. And there are different ones that do different things, right? Or like I said, if you want to do less, right? Because we had some editing services provided and a whole bunch of other things. If you want to do a lot more of that stuff yourself, it's even less expensive. Like if you really want to do it on your own, go to Kindle Digital Publishing, create a PDF, upload it, and it's available on Amazon in like an hour, right?
Wow.
But you got to do it all yourself, and you can make whatever, I think $3 a book, $4 a book in order to do that. And I think it depends on the number of pages that you have that does that. So hopefully that gives folks a good sense. I mean, there's all sorts of details and all sorts of variability depending on whatever you do. But that's kind of my experience, our experience, and hopefully that gives some good context. But your mileage may vary.
All right. Well, listen, I just checked in, and you guys are at 97% of your flexible goal here. $9,764. So amazing. Hopefully you round it out soon. Make sure your campaign runs until the end of the year.
Yep.
And go to Indiegogo and there we got SIWIKE, SIWIKE. What?
Buy their book.
That's what I'm saying.
It's stuff you wish you knew earlier. Buy the damn book.
But people that are listening to the show.
That's what I'm talking to.
I was trying to spell it. No, people that are listening.
Yeah.
SIWIKE. That's what you have to search for on Indiegogo. All right, there you go.
Now I have just a couple questions for Tiffany and Shalini. My question is around and Lukey, feel free to jump in here. It's around, and actually David, you also spoke about this. It's around an aha moment, right? Where you were in your life, you were doing your thing, you were the road of your life kind of opened up before you, and you were like, I don't know about this. Can you talk a little bit about that your aha moment and a moment in time where you sort of changed direction, where you pivoted?
Yeah, I can share first if you like. So as I was mentioning earlier, I didn't necessarily anticipate getting into the career strategy coaching field. And to be honest, the first sort of inklings of this really trickled in when I was on my first maternity leave with my corporate work. And I was really excited. I kind of felt something stirring in me. And for context, although I studied marketing, I had a business degree, things I always really loved doing was like public speaking. I always kind of envisioned myself as a young person more being maybe like a motivational speaker one day. But I went into the corporate route as a marketing professional. But on this first maternity leave, it started kind of coming back because I mean, for those of us who are on maternity leaves, you have some time for reflection. And at that moment, my husband was starting his own business. And so I kind of got a glimpse into what that entrepreneurial side was like. It sparked a lot of interest, but with reflection at that time, I knew my role in that moment was to really support him and be more of that sounding board and keep more of my corporate work at the time. So I kind of tabled the idea and I said, you know what, if it's still there in the back of my mind, let me just see what evolves. And then sure enough, I had another maternity leave. And this is where that urge kind of came back, but even stronger. And talking about aha moment, I really kind of had this aha moment in like January of 2020. I'd been following a lot of different influential people I looked up to. And similar to what we were saying before about the comparison piece, I wasn't looking at them and saying from a negative headspace as to, like, why not me? Or, what am I doing wrong? It was more of like, maybe this is something really worth exploring. And that's what kind of clicked for me. And if you have been on a maternity leave, you know it's very tiring and you don't have much time, especially in those early months. And that was when my daughter was born. But I had this sudden urge of like, this is what I need to do. Like, I need to give it a shot. I need to bet on myself. I need to really pay it forward to this next generation of talent. And similar to what we were all saying before around sharing your story, I was like, I have a feeling my story is going to connect, but also in that way of being very empathic and relatable, because I was coming from a coaching side of things where I was in those shoes as an employee, right? It wasn't the classical recruitment HR background of coaching. It was going through it myself and sharing a lot of those learnings. And so that was, I think, my aha moment, that I never had that. And I really wished I had that. And so that was that thing that really pushed me over the edge, that there's probably people out there who could benefit from having learned from my been there, done that experiences.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
That was awesome.
Yeah, Charlene. Sorry, Jay.
No, it's okay. Listen, check this comment out on YouTube Live. Here we go. Stuff I wish I knew earlier, just posted on my Twitter. I have the first edition from 2018 and gave it to my nephew. He started U of T in 2021. I'll be ordering some more soon. Listen, you guys got to get Google to hand this book out to all their co-op students. Just get the corporates to and then pass them out for you. Thanks, Neon.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thanks so much, Neon.
Yeah, so I don't know if I have a specific moment. I've been thinking about this. For me, the thing I can kind of talk to is, for me, my whole career almost always seemed very like a ladder. It always seemed like, well, you go to school and you have to go to university and then you have to get a job and then you have to do all of these things. And even culturally, my background, being Indian and being an immigrant to Canada, it's just, this is what you do. This is this ladder you have to climb, and you keep climbing it until by the time you're 30, you need to be a VP. By the time you're 40, you need to be a CEO. And at some point, I even looked at doing my MBA and I was writing the GMAT and all of these things, and it never clicked for me. It never felt right. What I just remember, maybe the one moment is I remember having lunch with a colleague and she telling me about this program, and this is this psychology program. It's all online. This was pre-COVID times, and this was maybe 2018. And I thought, oh, I'll never get in. I don't know how to write a paper. So I tried it. I called them and I talked to them and I sent in my application, and I had a really awesome recruiting person. I was still in contact with some of my professors from my Wilfrid Laurier days, and he just really encouraged me to keep going on this path. And so the way I kind of did it is I said, well, how will I know that I'll even be successful in the psychology program? So what I did is I took a Coursera course. I said, okay, this is free. No consequences, no money spent. Let me actually take this course and let me take it for real. Let me actually do the assignments. Let me watch the videos, and everything about psychology just it didn't feel like work to me. And I just had this feeling where it was so fun. And I'd never had that feeling in my undergrad. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this program. I'll just take it one course at a time. If I, at any point, if I don't like it, I can just drop out. There's no harm. And here we are. What is it? 2018 I started. I'm still going. I still want to finish this. And each course I take, I always give myself this option of, if you don't like it, it's okay. This is it's not something I chose. It's the first time I chose to do something that wasn't climbing the ladder. The most people in my background is tech or technology, psychology, they would ask, well, why are you doing this? Like, how does this fit? What is the point of this? So it never felt like another certification or just something you do to get those letters at the end of your name, or it never felt like something I had to do. In fact, kind of felt a little bit like the opposite. Most people in my consulting world are really surprised when I tell them I'm doing this master's in psychology. It's mostly like, why do you do this? And to me, that's almost seems like a silly question. It's because it just feels good. And so the aha moment maybe for the first time I was just listening to those feelings, that like excitement when something doesn't feel like work. And to be honest, like I really found that when you look at other people and like every time I would look at Adrian and see this is how he felt about film. And I always knew that everyone has that thing that they feel about this way, and they have to listen to it. And so with
Yeah, dare I say it? It sounds a lot like you found your element. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you can paint by numbers through your whole life, and you can do the things that you feel are the right moves. And then sometimes you do something for you and you find your element. And really, I mean, one of the telltale signs of finding your element is when time vanishes, when you're able to sink into something, when it doesn't feel like work. I mean, these are really important parts of the puzzle. That's amazing. That's really great.
Exactly. And then it becomes so easy to share it because you're so excited. And I feel like I could talk about it all the time. And that's like how Tiffany talks about her career coaching, how Dave talks about this kinesiology and his stuff. It just feels, you can see the energy light up in their faces when they talk about these things. Like humans are tuned into these things and these keys, and we can tell when someone is being genuine, and we can tell when someone is doing the thing that they need to do because they need to pay the bills, right? We can tell those things.
Yeah. Now, are there any questions that you guys have for each other where you're kind of curious about the process that one of the other authors may have gone through? And you're like, I mean, I assume that you guys have read the book. And is there a section in the book where you're like, how did they get to this story? Or do you have any questions for each other?
How did he not already know that?
I think the question that I had was for Shalini, where essentially you were the one doing the section on mental health, and I know you were challenged with some kind of mental health situations while you're writing the mental health section. So I'm just curious about like how that was. Like, was it like therapeutic? Was it one where you got to learn on the fly, that sort of thing? Because it's one where I know we had conversations between, it's like, is everything okay? and I'm just curious if you're willing to share, I guess, some of that process along the way, because I always find it that I almost thought that, you know what, the person who is writing whatever section is going to go through whatever they're writing about as they're writing the book, and that's probably the best way to learn. So I'd love if you're willing to share a little bit of that. Not
for sure,
put you on the
yeah.
spot.
No, totally fine. So Luki's alluding to, there was about a month or two in the writing of the book where I was kind of having a tough time mentally, having a tough time with COVID, with anxiety. I have I have family all over the world. So I have family in Zimbabwe. I was born there. And then I have family in India. And so the situation with COVID Last year, I spent most of the year unemployed. So there was just a lot of stuff externally that was happening. And writing the book felt kind of like this. It felt at one point it just felt like this other thing that I had to do that was external, and it was like I have no more to give. How do I find that peace? And the way so one the biggest thing was community. So all of these people here, they completely understood. There was no questions asked. There was even like Ruki messaging, Tiffany messaging, all of them individually messaging and saying like, "Are you okay? Like, don't worry. That this isn't like." We even delayed the writing part for about a month. So the first thing is having a space where people understand that you're human, is really important. But the second thing, and I would say even more important than the first thing, is giving yourself the time to know that it is okay to not be okay. And so maybe it's serendipity, I don't know, but in the writing this book, it's and that's why I say it was a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit anxious writing these pieces, because I chose to go. At first, I was kind of writing it in a very structural, very advice kind of giving way, and that felt like a chore. But when this experience happened, I switched to writing. Well, what is the thing that I know the most about? This is my story, my journey, my path. And so I started writing about it. And I do write about times in the book where I write like I'm struggling and in COVID times, and it's this time. And um, another piece that's really challenging is I started a new job, but I've never met most of my team in person. Like I've all seen them online, and I don't even know where my office is, my physical office. My office is this is my office in my house, and so the just not having those personal connections when I'm someone who's so attuned to that piece, it definitely was challenging. But the biggest lesson that I learned is that it the more we share when we're not okay, people will surprise you in the sense that they get it, and it's not something that is no one looks down upon you, and no one says that um you're weak, or these are just stories we tell ourselves in our head. And when we start talking to ourselves like how our best friend would talk to us or how our mom would talk to us, that's kind of the language you need to use for yourself. So it taught me to be more kind to myself.
That's
because
right.
I was receiving kindness.
We speak to ourselves in the crappiest way. It is horrible. The way that we speak to ourselves, we would never speak to another human being that way. So, yes, you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
Okay. Quick questions for everybody. Here we go. You guys are writing this book, and hopefully it changes somebody's life. They read it, it hits them right in the right moment, and they're able to, build their life in a cool way, and they absolutely love it. Give us quickly one book that changed your life. Let's start with Lukey.
So the book that changed my life was, the first one that kind of put me on this path was, I think it was called Now Break All the Rules. And it was one where it was founded based on StrengthsFinder, about kind of one of those personality assessments. And I'm like, this is interesting. I've heard of like Myers-Briggs and those types of things, but this is a new one. And then it kind of got me, okay, what else don't I know about this stuff? So that was one where it kind of turned me on. I was like, and then I took the assessment, and it pointed me to the path of kind of coaching, where they have these things called your top 5 that you have, and they were all like maximizer, developer, learner, and stuff like that. The ones that really relate to helping others reach their potential. That's probably the book that set me on this path. Sure, there were other things that set me on this path, but if I were to pick a book, that would have been the one that set me on this path.
Amazing. And I'm putting Paulson, I'll put you on the spot next.
Yeah, so I'll talk from a finance perspective, but one of the earliest books. So my background's actually not in finance. It's in engineering. So I was one of those engineers that veered into the financial world. But I think a book that I read early on that really put me on that right path, I think, is The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. So it's a great read. It may get boring at times, but it's a great read for just understanding the mindset of what it takes to be an investor. Right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paulson. Tiffany.
Yeah, so my choice isn't actually going to be business related or tied to coaching, but it's actually Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. And it came at a good time in my life where I was reevaluating my own health choices, lifestyle choices, and I found his story really inspiring, and it prompted a lot of positive action for me. So funnily enough, it tied well with sort of that perspective change that I was saying before with that first maternity leave. And that's where a lot of things started shifting in a very positive direction, very much in control of my destiny and where I wanted to go. And I'd say that book played an important role in that for me.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, for myself, I'll key in on one on the fitness and health side. The 80-20 rule by Matt Fitzgerald really helped me kind of key into the fact where, as far as we tend to be, or again, maybe where I started was kind of like the weekend warrior. I'm going through my work week, and then at the weekend comes, okay, I got to do something, and I get out there, and then I'm actually in such a bad shape after I do that on a Saturday morning that I don't want to do anything on Sunday, and then go into the next week, right? Whereas he kind of ties into the 80-20 rule, where we can actually spend 80% of our time in kind of a lower intensity type of workout, and only 20 in that really high intensity bracket, and keep us in a condition where we can do it again the next day and the next day and not feel that fatigue. So that was really eye-opening in that regard, and kind of took some weight off to think, I'm not failing, I'm just doing it wrong. So yeah, anyways.
Awesome. Thank you. Shal?
Yeah, and then mine was it's called Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle. So it's like it's her own personal story, and basically the essence of what that book taught me is that life is kind of like we're driving to our destination. And so we're driving in this car, we know where our destination is, but we may not, like if I'm driving to New York City, I can't see New York City. I know where it is, I know what it looks like. Sometimes it's nighttime, sometimes it's daytime, sometimes I have my brights on, but that's kind of, so we know kind of the next step. We know where we're going next, we can see that far ahead, but we can't see our destination. So that's kind of what this book taught me.
Amazing. And for people that want to find you guys, now, Lukey, you have your own podcast.
Yep.
The SIWIKE podcast. So people can probably hunt you down there. We're going to put a link to that in the show notes. Where do you guys all do your own consulting as well as writing? Like, if people want to spend time learning from you all, can people do that? How do people find you all? Is LinkedIn the best way, or sorry?
You can go on Indiegogo and get one of the perks, which will have consultation hours for each and every one of us. So depending on which one you want to focus on, or all of us, if you really want, take advantage of all the perspectives, might as well invest in yourself. But for me, it's probably LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. Lukey, Danu Karyanto, that there's not a lot of.
I will put links. Don't worry.
That would be the best way to reach me. But as Jay said, I do have my own podcast, Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier. It's my channel is Focus Inspired, if you want to take a look at it.
Awesome. We'll put links to all of you guys if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Are we gonna add one of our sections in here?
Yeah, we're gonna do it right now. Here we go.
Desert Island Movies.
All right. Now, so usually we tell you guys what we're going to do before Jay plays the little clip, but now I will explain it.
Listen, this time it's got to be different. Because
all right.
This time it's got to be the five of you
Oh,
have crashed on a desert island.
and they have
you
3 movies.
You each get to bring one movie. I'm sorry, it's got to be
Okay.
one movie.
All right.
So you one movie
that you can watch over and over again.
There you go, and hopefully don't get you murdered by the other people on the island. Let's start with you, Tiffany. What's your guilty pleasure that you can watch every day?
Oh my gosh. Don't get me started, but I have to go with Dirty Dancing.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. I could also recite it if I don't have the movie there. So these people will not escape it regardless if the movie goes bust. Yeah, Dirty Dancing for sure.
Amazing.
Shaw, you're next.
So hard. I have to say The Dark Knight, the second one with Heath Ledger. I can also recite that movie.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Heath, man, come on, what a champ.
Chris Nolan is my hero.
Okay, but listen,
Have you guys
was
have
too
you
far.
guys
Tenet,
watched?
Tenet was next level,
Was
but
too
can you
far.
watch that over and over again?
Yeah, he went too far with Tenet. You're like, huh?
My wife watched the trailer for the new Batman movie,
No.
and she was like,
Oh,
they got to make it darker than Chris
Yeah.
Nolan's Batman." So I'm excited. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Robert
Yeah.
Pattinson, come on.
Yeah,
Hopefully, fingers crossed, everyone.
I think
Paulson.
so.
Yeah, any movie with Leo, I think is a special. Yeah, is good. But
He's awesome.
yeah, he's awesome. But in particular, I'd say the movie that The Departed is based on, Infernal Affairs, which is the original Hong Kong made version. I think that comes to mind. It's a great movie. Yeah, so.
Fantastic. I haven't seen that. I didn't even know that Departed was based on another movie.
Yeah, it's based on Infernal Affairs, which stars a fellow called Andy Lau and another fellow called Tony Leung. And Tony Leung is the guy in Shang-Chi that plays the father. So if you don't know.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Love that movie. David.
Okay, yeah, for me, I'm a big Marvel fan, so maybe the Avengers Endgame. I'd probably take that one there.
Amazing. You can take all the Marvel movies. It's one. It's
Yeah.
one you. It's one
Can't make
unit.
mistakes
It's not
there,
fair.
yeah. Oh, yeah, perfect.
No, that's
perfect.
fair enough. Lukey.
The first one that popped into my head, and I don't know if I could watch it over and over and over again, but I probably have, is The Matrix. Mr. Keanu Reeves. I thought that was very interesting and maybe fitting because I think I got unplugged from the Matrix and I was like, what the hell happened now? What do I do? That I have to live off this mush and whatever and figure things out on my own. So that would probably be the one that I'd pick.
Now,
Amazing.
are you excited for the new Matrix?
I am. It's one where I mean, I didn't like the second and the third movie. I wasn't a big fan of those two, but this one, I'm very hopeful. Right.
Yeah.
So being hopeful, I'm quite excited.
Fantastic.
I almost removed Lukey from the conversation. Just like-
That's what happens if you don't like the Matrix.
See,
We move you
Lukey,
to the
you're on
bottom.
bottom now. Boom. Done.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I offended someone.
Yeah, me. That's all. And the Wachowskis. Oh, come on, guys. Thanks so much. We really appreciate you coming on. Listen, everyone out there, we're gonna put the link in the show notes. Go buy the book. You got till the end of the year, and then afterwards, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be everywhere. So thanks everyone for joining us. That was a lot of fun. And,
Congratulations, guys. This
yeah.
is a big deal.
So
Writing
huge.
a book and getting it out there, a book that can help people. This is important stuff. So congratulations.
Thanks so much for having us, and
Yes,
we
thank
appreciate
you.
the opportunity.
All right, we'll see you guys again, and that's it. That's the end of our show. We will, for whoever stayed this long, we will be back again. We will podcast again. You will hear what's going on with Shifted. We are this close, so hopefully we are almost there. So just
So
hang
close.
tight. So close.
Yeah.
We will give an update in a future show. But until then, everyone dream big.
Work hard. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Really hope you enjoyed the show.
Wherever you watched or listened, please leave us a comment or a review. We really want to hear from you.
Share the show with a friend. You know they'll love us.
Head over to our website, thefableforest.com. There's all kinds of great stuff.
Poke around. Check it out.
See you all again in a couple weeks.